Imagination is a good thing. If you ever lose your imagination, I don't know this for a fact, but I would tend to think you'll probably lose your lust for learning, because I was focusing on the word imagination one day, and I still have my imagination at times, not as thoroughly as I used to when I was younger, but I tend to think that imagination is like the keystone to learning. If you can imagine things, that means you're keeping your brain open um, to, or not open, but you, you're keeping your brain receptive to learning, and that's always a good thing, because there's been all kinds of documents to say that you never stop learning, or you never should stop learning up until the day that you die. And I firmly believe that even if it's you can actually learn without you know any formal introduction to things. Like they say that just reading, just reading books uh, is a form of continuous learning. So my imagination is still here. I still read. I don't read as much as I used to, but I've got to get back to it. As a matter of fact, just I'm going to say maybe a month ago, maybe 5 weeks ago, I said to myself, I saw a movie that planted this thought in my head. It was a Denzel Washington movie, and he mentioned, it was a line that he had in there that I sort of want to incorporate into my life, and that is, he said he was reading 100 books, and it made me think of something, two things. It made me think of two things. I want to do that because I want to learn continuously, but here's one thing. There was a thing called Harvard reading, mandatory Harvard reading, and there were some things, that they required you to read in your lifetime because they said it was, good for your development, give you different aspects of life. You might learn some philosophical type things, multiple multiple areas of your life will be touched, like from a moral standpoint and all these different things. But, Harvard had a list of 100 must-read books. And I actually have read a couple of them too, even though I didn't use that as my template. It did on occasion through life. I've thought about that. But I heard that you should read 100 books in your lifetime consistently. I mean, we've all read at least 100 books, but I mean, there has to be a systematic approach to it. Like when you go from one book, you go to the next book, and you go to the second and third and fourth and so on. And they say that if you do that, you're going to be really developing yourself. They didn't have there's been all kinds of write-ups on which specific books, and some of them are pretty tough to read. But I think everybody should at least at some point try to do that, because it'll help develop the fiber of your being. Let's see where we can move to next. Let's see. I got here. Important things in life. That can touch on anything. The importance of things vary with the individual. So you would have to ask yourself what's important in life, but you have to lock on to something that's important. You have to lock on to something that's important. I mean, you absolutely have to lock on to something that's important. If somebody asks you, hey, what's important in your life? I mean, that answer would vary with the individual, because some people will say family, and they'll spend the bulk of their time. And then some folks are so diversified. I mean, their internal portfolio is so wide that, they're tapping into all these different areas, and they're well-rounded or fully developed. And I wish that was me too, now that I think about it. I wish I was more, I wish I had tapped into that even further, because I left some things on the table, and one of them is the Unix language in programming. Unix is like a programming language in the technology field. And I was working at NCR at the time, and I had this one job. I was working in a systems engineering capacity. However, I was trained kind of differently. I didn't have the Unix background. The only thing I had was what they call System 5 Release 4. But I didn't have enough exposure to it to become really, to develop an in-depth knowledge. I was a Microsoft guy, trained primarily with my systems engineering. But I ended up in NCR at one point taking a job where I worked with some really smart people. Let me tell you about a hole that was in my soul. And somebody saved me. And God, that's probably not a fair way of putting it, but here. I'm working at NCR, and we're on the development side of the business, in that we were developing an optical technology. There was a guy named Paul Detweiler. Well, here, let me go back a step here. Scanners in like grocery stores. If you think about a scanner, you just, swipe your product and it reads a barcode. And at one point here recently, because, we're deep into the technology now, but several years ago, back in the early 90s, this was really, it wasn't off the ground as much, and we were developing it. A lot of folks, give IBM a lot of credit for some developments, and that's a really good company. But the company that I worked for also was a really, really good company, because I look at some of the technologies that we developed, and we were a leader. And like I said, the company had been around over 100 years. They were a technology leader also, even though a lot of folks don't even associate it with that company or NCR. But here, let me share this here. This scanning technology was just taking off, and you would scan an item and you'd have to swipe it 20 times before it read. We were developing that technology, and we were getting pretty good at it. I need to say John too, but I'm gonna stick with Paul Detweiler. He was, I'm just gonna say, part of the science team, but he was developing this technology, and we all had a little hand in it, but he was primarily the guy. Paul Detweiler and his wife, Debbie Detweiler, she was a software engineer, and Paul was, he was an engineer on the science side, but all of it is science. But those two people, and they had a son too. And I was saying to myself one day, he's going to be really smart. But they filled a hole that I had in my spirit. Here we go. I've taken this new role because, there was some restructuring, reorganization going. And I take this new role and I go to this team, and we're developing this technology. And I'm not fully equipped. I have the skill set in place, but I just haven't been in that environment and working with that technology. Hadn't had exposure to it in the past. So I'm going in already at a disadvantage. But however, you know, people that placed me there felt that I had the mental capacity to, you know, catch up or to make a contribution. Let's just put it that way. We're developing this, well, they were, you know, I was just part of the team, and I want to minimize my role because I wasn't as skilled as them. I mean, they were skilled. And he was developing how we could reflect this light, or this, well, I guess you could call it light reflection. It may fall along the lines of refraction. No, this was the reflection piece, I'm sorry. But it bounced the signal back, and then we were able to, you know, try to fine-tune some of these circuits so that it could read this barcode, so you can get it down to like 0% errors or 0 errors. And when I thought about that, I thought about them. I had to tell that story because they were smart people, and a lot of times stuff goes unnoticed. And you'll never believe who were leaders in that industry, but they'll never get credit, you know, never get credit probably, because I don't think he did any patents. However, maybe somebody within legal maybe worked with him to do something, because Geislinger ended up getting a patent. So maybe Paul got some associated with him, but they helped me navigate my way through until I became comfortable with it, you know, because I didn't know coding, you know, and a lot of it was based around some of the Unix codes and being able to delve into lines of code in order to make some of the corrections. And I wasn't strong in Unix, and I wish now, as I look back, I had developed more of a Unix background, because it was an important language. And I would advise anyone, you know, to make sure you look at that line. You know, maybe it's changed now, you know, because with this AI, this artificial intelligence, now, today, we can just ask artificial intelligence like Bard to, you know, just do the line of code for us. You just tell it what you want to accomplish, and it'll spit out the code. I mean, imagine that. Imagine that. When we came through, we had to decipher each line. If you were developing any kind of a web page or anything, and now you can actually get a program to do it for you. That's how it's changed, how much it has changed, and it's going to get smarter. I'm going to stay right there for a second too. This is real important. This is real important because it is to speak of, pardon me for 1 second here as I come back with you, but I want to look at, I'm sorry. I had to take a moment to do a time check. Talking about artificial intelligence, I'm back. You're in for some exciting times, Max, and everyone. You're in for some exciting times. Let me tell you what's getting ready to happen. And I'm going to give you a theory, and it's going to sound almost too scientific. It's going to sound dystopian when I tell you. I want to tell a dystopian type story. I wish I had a pencil. I want to write down the word dystopian so I can remember to get back to this line. But anyway, artificial intelligence is getting ready to marry itself with quantum computing. And when I say you're getting ready for some exciting times, let me tell you what's getting ready to happen. Artificial intelligence is a new science. I mean, it's been around and we're developing it, but it's not released for the most part to the public. I mean, it's out there, but people are just learning it and just learning the uses of it. They don't understand how powerful it is. Now, robotics is here. And I mean, robotics is, I mean, for the most part, I mean, I saw a robot, what was it? Boston Dynamics, I think it was. God, they had a robot. I'm like, I didn't even think man was there. I didn't even think man was there. That's how advanced they've advanced their technology. But I want to get to, I'm going to tie three things together. I'm going to tie together artificial intelligence, robotics, and quantum computing. And let's go to quantum computing. Right now, when I was trained in electronics, you know, we did with the, we talked about the bit bucket, zeros and ones, and everything was in zeros and ones. Well, quantum computing is a whole lot different. It's almost like saying that you don't just go from 1 to 0 or from one state to an opposite state. It's like 1 or 2. Just imagine, that's the best way to simplify it. That's the best way to simplify it without being technical. Imagine if you only have 2 choices. You have 1 and 2. Just look at it as numbers only. You have to choose between 1 and 2, which is a 0 and a 1 in electronics talk or in technical talk. But look at it as numbers. Everybody understands numbers, 1 and 2. That's how computers work. It's either yes or no, 1 or 2, yes or no. That's how the computers work today. But guess what? It's a new day. Get ready for it, because it is an exciting time coming with this quantum computing. Let me tell you what it is. Where we had yes and no, or the 1 and 2, imagine that 1 and 2 times 1,000,000. Like, say, for example, there was 1,000,000 steps between 1 and 2. The way we do things now, 1 and 2. But imagine it's a 1,000,000 little bitty steps in between that 1 and 2. Like the 1 here and the 2 there, and we got another 1,000,000 steps in between it. That's what quantum computing is. That's what you're getting ready for. That's what the future is. And just like we'll use a computer right now, a personal computer or a handheld device or PDA or whatever you want to, however you want to reference it, those things are, you know, we consider fast compared to when this stuff was first taken off. Because I remember when it first, you know, when the first computer was introduced, and I was one of the guys who worked on one of the first ones in the field. Like when businesses started rolling them out and using them, you know, I was running around repairing those things. Here's what quantum computing is getting ready to do. It's going to calculate so fast. It's going to calculate so fast that anything that we do today is going to be done 1,000,000 times faster. 1,000,000 times faster. And I mean, you know, I'm probably being generous when I say 1,000,000 times faster. I think it might be more than that. I just haven't read any of the journals lately. But, I just found myself getting too technical. I want to stay away from being too technical because I don't want to lose you. Because a lot of folks don't like technical talk. And, you know, technology doesn't excite a lot of folks. So I do want to, you know, create this where it's user friendly, you know, where you can look at it and enjoy it. So I'll just leave it there, that you're getting ready to see a marriage between quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and robotics. And, you know, don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of that stuff at all. People may try to scare you talking about, oh, the robot's going to take over your job. So what? Guess what? You get to rest more. I shouldn't say it like that, but let's put it in a more professional sense. You'll have more leisure time. You'll have more leisure time. Look at it that way. So when someone try to scare you that, oh, I don't want a robot taking my job. No, just say, man, the robot's going to make our life easier. They'll be doing these little mediocre tasks, and they'll do things that I won't have to do. I wouldn't have to lift a 50-pound box. The robot will do it for me. You know, I may have to sit down and, you know, type in something on a keyboard and tell it what to do, or I may have to speak, or you won't have to do any typing because the speech recognition is at a whole new level. You just tell it what to do and it'll do it. It'll be taking instructions from you. You'll be a supervisor starting off. You don't even have to work your way up. You know, like in today's marketplace, you have to go in as a supervisor, work your way up in management into the executive levels and all of that stuff. You don't have to work your way to being a supervisor because the robotics are going to be the workers, the worker bees, or the robots are going to do all of the manual labor for you. And you might want to do some coding because that'll help you. But keep in mind that the premise of what I'm saying right now is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. It is nothing to be afraid of. Technology is going to always change. Things are going to get better. Like here's an example. You wouldn't want to ride around in a horse and buggy, but at one time that was a form of transportation and it was top of the line. You don't want to ride around in the future in a bumpy car, you know, running across, you know, you driving down the street and every time you hit a pothole, boom, you're up in the air and your coffee's spilling. That's where we are today. But tomorrow don't hold that. They're already releasing flying cars. We're in the beginning of the flying car. And trust me, they haven't even hit the streets yet. That's how new it is. That's how this technology is just coming. They're just taking orders. They haven't even delivered the first flying car yet. But as I sit here with you today, they're taking the orders. You're not going to be hitting potholes. You're going to be flying by just as smoothly. Your vehicle is just going to just glide across the air. Don't be afraid of the technology. Embrace it. Just embrace it. It's coming, and it's good. It's good. I guess the goal of that conversation is to tell you that you should be ready, and change is good, and change is constant. Let's see here. Oh, I've got a story to tell you about. Oh man, this is be careful if you have this conversation in public because it can scare people. When I first, there's some of the technical, I don't want to say magazines, articles. Let's call them articles. I read, Scientific American. I read a lot of the, I don't want to say a lot of them. I read sometimes about science. I ran across a story that scared me. I mean, it started making me questioning everything. And that question was man from the beginning designed to be a robot? Blew my mind. Blew my mind. Let me tell you what happened. And I reiterated that, and sorry about that. This article questioned my faith, and I know I believe in God. But this article asked, what if God was a technology? And what if God, during this development, placed us on this earth in an infant stage and we are developing? Here's what I mean. This guy did this article, and then I was like, I can't believe it. And then I read another article, and then I saw an online, it was a video of it, and And these were smart people. These were PhDs. These were, guys, that are on the leading edge of technologies. Here's what they said. Scared me. And at the same time, made me think. They said that billions and billions of years ago, what if an advanced life form sent a microbe to Earth? And part of that metamorphosis, or part of that thing that they put here on Earth, was to grow. And it would grow and it would transform. It would go from that little microbe all the way up to like a lizard, all the way up to all of these different things, turn into an ape, turn into a man. But the end game was that man was gonna be a robot. I was like, that don't make sense. That was my initial reaction. But as I'm listening to this guy, he begins to scare me because it starts making sense. He said, in the future, if you have a problem with your hands, they're gonna put an artificial hand on you. Put one on you. If your heart should have any trouble, they're gonna put like an artificial heart in you. Bam. They're working on technology now with the neural network in the brain that they're mapping all of this stuff, and it's getting to the point where they're going to be able to recreate a brain and transfer your consciousness. And I'm like, man, that's dystopian. But yet it sounds almost believable because, I'm looking at this soldier who ended up with a prosthetic leg. He had an injury from the war, so he had to get a prosthetic leg. And one guy with a prosthetic arm. But yet the technology is there's sensors inside of those prosthetic devices that are touching their skin. They can actually feel it through their skin. They got it mapped to where when a foot bends, if you have a prosthetic leg, it feels like it's sending a signal to your brain that it feels like your foot. And you can sit there and wiggle your foot. I'm actually wiggling my foot underneath the table. You can wiggle your foot and your brain feels it. And I'm like, okay, this dystopian stuff, it has a wee bit of merit, but I'm not quite buying in. But then all of a sudden I'm going, wait a minute, what if, you end up with, your hands get old and, you have to replace them. You got an artificial hand. All of a sudden now your kidneys are bad. You got artificial kidneys. And all of a sudden you need a pump for your heart. Your heart is bad. They have a artificial heart you put in. It comes to the point where all of a sudden everything in you is artificial completely to stay alive. The point was, they're saying that, lifespan of a man, say 100 years, just 100 years, could go to 1,000. 1,000 years. The lifespan, you won't live 100 years anymore. You'll live 1,000 years because you'll become totally robotic. And anytime something in you is no longer working, medical professionals are going to be able to incorporate technology to just, okay, here, your bladder's not working. They'll put a new bladder in you, and now you're working better than the original. What? What? It made me wonder. And I'm like, where do you get to the point where everything that breaks and all of a sudden they've replaced it all, and that now 90% of your body is artificial? It's like some kind of a robotic form, like a, manual heart and, You know, you got prosthetic arms and legs and stuff because the bone deteriorated or something, you know. Then all of a sudden you walk around and go, hey man, if I'm 90% freaking artificial, am I a robot? So this, I call it dystopian type thinking because, you know, you can say the science writers might come up with something like this here. But it made me think, made me question my God. And I'm like, oh, Lord have mercy. I read too much at times. I freaking read too much at times. I need to get away from it, take a break from this stuff. Oh, man. I got sidetracked with that. My apologies. I got sidetracked. However, my thoughts were flowing just then. And that's primarily what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to speak and have my thoughts flow without any inhibitions, you know, or being, you know, like reluctant to talk about things.